You tracking with me? You know what I mean? I mean, because for some of us, I mean, does your social network in your life really bring you true joy, peace, significance, and fulfillment? Or does it just bring you a high because there's a beep, you know, I got a message from somebody. Oh, that gives me something to do. You know, does your social network feed the hungry and clothe the naked and care for the orphan? Does your social network, is it restoring marriages? Is technology restoring marriages today? Or is it being used to tear marriages apart? Is technology and our social networks and our culture, is it freeing addicted people? Or is it giving them a safe harbor for their sin? Is technology or social networks, is it connecting us more really? Or is it isolating us more as we become more individualistic? See, Satan always has a counterfeit for God's very best plan. And I believe that God created the church as the greatest social network that can impact the world with everything. And you know what? As you say, well, Jim, where's this coming from? Let me share with you the tension, and then I got 3 things I want us to write down together this morning. But here's the tension. If you were to go to Europe, and you were to travel around Europe, do you know that 100 years ago, just at the turn of the century, over 70% of the world's Christ followers lived in Europe? If you were to go to Europe today, you know what? Less than 1% of the world's Christ followers live in Europe. You could go see over 250,000 different cities and towns that there is no Christian church. Man, see, that just blows me away. You can go right now and you can visit cathedrals in Europe. You can stand in line and you can pay money to a cathedral that's a tourist attraction. I'm talking about cathedrals where the hymns that we sing in our faith were written out of. I'm talking about cathedrals that the architecture was amazing when it was built. I'm talking about cathedrals that led to spiritual awakenings that caused some of you to sit here in this place today. Do you think that there weren't a group of people that sowed into that church, that invested into that church, man, that said, you know what, God, we want you to do a great thing, that put those bricks down, and they stood there and they said, man, I hope 100 years later that our cathedral's a tourist attraction. Do you think that? Some of you say, well, Carpenter, man, that's Europe. That's not America. If we had time today, we had a couple of buses, I could take you on a trip about 20 minutes from here to a church that my wife grew up in, to a church that just 20 years ago, we couldn't wait to have a break from college to come back and go to a service at that church because it was fresh, it was exciting, it was full of vision. I'd grown up in church and I'd never experienced church like that before. We couldn't wait to get there. There was not a group of people thinking, man, in the next 20 to 30 years, our church isn't going to exist. But I could put you on a bus and show you a shell of a church 20 minutes from right here, right in the buckle of the Bible Belt. Church, how does this happen in just one generation? How does that happen? Judges chapter 2, verse 10. It's not in your notes. But it says this, it says that after that generation died, there was another generation that grew up that did not acknowledge the great and awesome things that the Lord, their God, did among them. How does that happen? And this morning, here's what I think it is. And this is really what I want to spend the rest of my time today talking to you about, and I pray that God just puts in your heart. But I really believe that when the church starts doing church, and we stop being the church, that we can lose what it is that God intended for the church to be in our lives. See, it doesn't take long when we just start doing church, when we just start showing up. Man, and it's just habit, it's just that thing that we do on Sunday and we feel guilty if we don't. Man, it does, instead of being the church, God didn't call us to do anything, but He called us to be everything for His Son, Jesus Christ. And that's how it happens. If you're taking notes this morning, take a look at Acts chapter 1, verse 8. This is Jesus' original networking challenge. This is when Jesus started the original network. You thought, oh man, networks came when, some dude stood at his computer screen, as we've all watched the movie Social Network, and he was smarter than everybody else, and all that kind of stuff, and started Facebook. No, check this out. Look at this. In Acts chapter 1, verse 8, they're all standing there. Jesus is getting ready to go to heaven, and he says, but you will receive what? Power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you. And you will be what? In other words, you will be my social network. You will be my network to do what? To telling people about me where? Everywhere. Everywhere. I mean, do you think that God's a forward thinker? I mean, he knew that the computer was going to come up 2,000 years later. I mean, we might not have, but telling people about me everywhere. And he goes on, he says, we're in Jerusalem, throughout Judea, in Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. In Matthew chapter 16, verse 18, Jesus said, I will build my hospital. I will build my nonprofit organization. I will build my private school. I will build that parachurch organization. Is that what he said? No, he said, I will build what? I will build what? I will build my church. And guys and gals, we live in a time when there is so much opportunity. Do you know the fear that's out there? I mean, there is all kinds of fear, economically, politically, racially, socially. You think about the world is a mess. It's crazy. But you know what? I just believe this is the hour that we were created for, church. This is the hour that God has called us to rise up. And if you're taking notes this morning, write this down. And this question has messed with me this week. And man, I hope this question messes with you for this week and this whole entire year. But the question is, what if we stopped doing church and we started being the church? What if we stopped doing church and we started being the church? Because those disciples that stood there and Jesus gave them that original networking commission, and when you read through the book of Acts this week and you go on to verse 9 and 10 and 11, there were two angels that appeared to them. And some of you remember, the question they asked when they said, dudes, what are you doing staring up into heaven? Go. And a lot of us we come to church and we just stare at Jesus. It's like, okay, I got my church fix on for the week. But God didn't say to come and stare at me. Man, he said to go, be me. Be Jesus with skin on. Be my hands and feet. And here's what I think would happen, church. 3 things if we ever stopped doing church and we started being the church in our generation. Number 1, I believe that there would be a passion for Jesus like never before. Write that down, a passion for Jesus like never before. Earlier this week, guess what was it? I think it was Wednesday. Was that when signing day was for all the college recruits and everything? Got some Dogs fans in here, man. We did good this year, man. We got things are looking good. And I remember I woke up that morning and I was excited. I'm a football fan. You guys know that. I'm a sports guy. And so you're like, who cares? Signing day? Well, that's okay. You'll catch up in just a minute. But for those of you that knew it was signing day in Athens, Georgia, I was fired up. I was excited. I got up that morning. I was wondering, man, is so-and-so going to sign? Are they going to sign? Is that going to happen? All that kind of stuff. Is Isaiah going to come here? Is he going to go to Alabama and break our hearts? What's going to happen? And I remember coming into the office and I looked at one of the staff members. I said, man, we should go down to the Blind Pig, man, and have lunch. And he's like, are you crazy? He said, it's already packed. He said, if you weren't there by like 9 or 10 o'clock this morning, you're probably not even going to get a seat. There's thousands of people there. And you know what I got to thinking? God just kind of hit me. He said, you're a little bit more passionate about who the Bulldogs are signing today than you are about my church. I got to, you know what? And now God just hit me over like a 2x4 over the head with that. What is it that you're passionate about, church? If we stopped doing church and we started being the church, we would have a passion for the church. Do you know that when the church rises up, it's unstoppable? There is like a passion deficit in our lives when it comes to the local church. I'm just here to try to help you with that a little bit this morning. I just feel that. I was talking to Wesley Odom, our student pastor, and he had surveyed some of our students a while back. And do you know what their mindset, and these are students that go to our church. That's what really blew me away. But he said, you know what they believe in their view of the church is? It's pews, old people, stained glass windows, hymns, and a building. In other words, it's stagnant, and there's no passion. And I'm like, man, we got to fix that. We have got to change that, church. We've got to stop attending church, and we've got to start acting like the powerful, life-giving force that God has placed within us, that he's called the local church, and the local church as the social network that can impact and change the world to be. You know, I don't know what it is that you're passionate about in life. I had an opportunity to go to the Super Bowl one time. And I've told a little bit of this story. I want to tell a little bit different twist. And all that I have to remember that Super Bowl is this cup right here. I don't know if I can get a close-up on it, but it says Dallas Cowboys Super Bowl. Does anybody, can they see that? Am I on the right camera here? I hope. Oh, there we go. Let's check it out. Can you read it? You can. It's hard. 1993, okay? I've been carrying this cup around for that long. Now, here's the deal. I was sitting there. I was sitting in Dallas, Fort Worth, where they are right now. You know, all the parties going on, all this, all that. I was there on business. I had tickets in my hand for the Super Bowl. And you know what? I got a phone call from this beautiful, gorgeous, just unbelievable girl. Her name was Lisa. She happened to be my wife. You guys were wondering where I was going with that, didn't you? Yeah, whoa. And the voice there, you know, and man, I've got tickets in my hand for the Super Bowl. I'm fired up. I'm excited. My first Super Bowl. They were on the 50-yard line. Michael Jackson was doing the halftime show, man. I wanted to see that. I know I was a Michael Jackson fan. 80s music rocks. It's the best out there. Sorry. But anyway, and I get this voice on the phone that says, honey, how about instead of going to the Super Bowl, you come home to me? Now you understand, the Super Bowl was in Los Angeles, and home for us then was Dallas. And I was like, let me think about this. So I give up my tickets and I get on a plane and I go home. Now let me tell you something. My wife had a day planned for us. You know what I'm talking about? We had the Super Bowl for two. We didn't have the Super Bowl for anybody else. I mean, we had massages that day that she had planned. We had dinner that day that she had planned. We went to a movie that day. I mean, it was a good thing that this boy got his butt on that plane from Los Angeles and went home to Dallas, Texas. I mean, that was, some of you are like, man, you're not even awake. This is the 9:30 service. They'll be more into that then. But you know why I did that? Because I was passionate. I was passionate about my wife. Man, I am in love with that girl. And I mean, love makes you do crazy things. I stood up here and I got to think about this. I can't make you read your Bible. I can't make you pray. I can't make you give. I can't make you serve. I can't make you serve the poor. I can't make you help the needy. I can't make you get involved and serve the city. I can't make you move of school. I can't make you do anything with that. But when you love Jesus and it's your passion, it just comes out of you. It's just the overflow that happens in your life. Jesus lived with passion. He wants us to play with passion. Jesus died because of passion. We need to live for him with passion in our life. A passion that when people look at us like, man, there's something different about you, bro. There's something different about you, dude. There's something different about you, dudette. I mean, wow. I mean, what is that? There's a spring in our step, you know what I mean? There's a glimmer in our eye. There's something that, I mean, when we show up on the scene because Jesus is inside of us, I mean, that's where our passion for the local church begins. It begins with Jesus. When you look at the book of Luke, it was the prequel. Dr. Luke wrote Acts. It's like the sequel. It starts with Jesus and it ends with Jesus, and Jesus is all the way in between. I mean, what is it that we're passionate about? People ought to see us and say, there's something different about you. Dang, man, I want what you got. Can I buy it? I mean, you know, are you selling it? I mean, whatever it is, I mean, wow. I mean, do you smoke that stuff? I mean, what is it? I want some of what you've got. I mean, that's the type of passion that this world is looking for from those of us that call ourselves Christ followers. Not attenders, people that are active, not a bunch of doers, but people that are being Jesus. If we ever stopped doing and started being, our passion for Jesus would be like never before. Here's the second thing, church, that I want you to write down this morning. There would be a pulse for lost people like never before.